Folks, I have returned from the frozen tundra of Wisconsin, and I have a lot that I want to get off of my chest. After experiencing both a failed Super Bowl run by my beloved Green Bay Packers and some intense ice fishing in the North Woods in minus 30-degree weather, I must admit, an escape from reality and the everyday ruin of the Biden administration on our country, I am glad to be back in the saddle and ready to bring you the truth. I'm your host, Eric Wright, and you are listening to the Closet Conservative Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, for over a generation, our nation has taught that everyone, regardless of race, deserves a shot at success. But folks, in an instant, President Joe Biden has dismantled and turned the tables, and this time, he is limiting his pool of candidates to make good on his campaign promise of bringing an African-American female to the Supreme Court. Some may say, Eric, why is this such a bad idea? Well, it's not a bad idea. Not at all. In fact, I fully support the initiative, but our nation, in seeing the first Afro-American president and vice president, it's only fitting that minority representation occurs within our nation's highest court. I get it. I support it. The issue, folks, is when the commander-in-chief and the responsible party of the Supreme Court justice appointment states only, let me say this again, only a population of just over 20 million of a total female population of 165 million is qualified for this job. Ladies and gentlemen, what you have here is reverse discrimination, reverse affirmative action. During his presidential campaign, Biden claimed from coast to coast that he would be the great unifier and ensure that African Americans get a fair shake at the American dream. Folks, Joe Biden and the rest of the Democrat Party couldn't give a rodent's rectum about minorities in this country. What's more, by stating that only a black female could be considered by his administration for a congressional nomination for the Supreme Court, he is in fact saying that all other races and genders and all other demographics are unqualified for this job. Imagine all the little girls out there who have to hear from their fathers and their mothers that their Asian heritage isn't as good as being an African American in today's Biden America. What about the physically disabled? Where's their seat at the bench? And let us not forget the liberal glitz and glam of the LGBTQ community, where they are caressed and kissed all over by today's Democrat Party. Where is your inclusion in a Biden Supreme Court? Talk about the hypocrisy. After Kamala Harris was elected vice president, she couldn't resist talking about stories of the prejudice consuming our nation. Overly dramatized accounts to illustrate conservatives into racists and white supremacists. And now, another attempt by her and Joe Biden to ensure favoritism to the black race should be a slap in the face to all African Americans in this country. Like so many millions of Americans, I was raised on ethical behavior, and that good works bring reward. But imagine the guilt and shame that many African Americans today should feel. Is this Supreme Court nomination about work or ability, or is it merely skin deep? There are certainly qualified possible nominees that identify as African Americans. Again, I get it. I support it. But instead of bringing these names forward for consideration, Joe Biden again race baits our country, pits whites against blacks, minority classes against themselves to make it seem that he and only white men of today's liberal and social Democrat Party are not racist. This is disgusting and repulsive, even for liberals. Joe Biden is not a man of unity, folks. Heck, he has never been a fighter of anything that wasn't self-serving or benefited his family. During his campaign, he spoke of all the work he had performed during his lifetime of service in the U.S. Senate for the black community. But folks, the truth is, outside of photo ops with Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Coalition and Barack Obama, the black community doesn't know old Joe or his self-proclaimed works. And why? Well, when Joe Biden was hobnobbing in the Senate chambers with his wealthy neighbors of Delaware, and while he entertained and engaged in business dealings with the richest of the wealthy in China, Russia, and Ukraine, millions of African Americans were living in destitute, in poverty, incarcerated, or dying in record numbers. And that is the Lord's truth. After his one-term presidency, Joe Biden will leave a legacy of historical inaction and more recent disastrous policies that will plague the future generations of our country. In 3 years, we will have seen our global military superiority demolished, our worldly and domestic economies obliterated, and a racial divide not seen since the Civil War. Democrats love the divide. Heck, they eat, sleep, and breathe it. It is what keeps them moving and motivated. But if I were a young black female living in the United States, I would feel gut-checked to know that only the color of my skin and not the content of my character or the works of my life is what will possibly get me ahead in America. And for that, all races in this country should come together to protest this gross injustice portrayed by our current president. So for Biden, correct this wrong, bring forward nominees based on their academic achievements and career accolades, and let this unracist country of ours, led by our elected leaders, pick the worthiness of the next justice of our Supreme Court. You have been listening to the Closet Conservative Podcast.